was originally struck when I first came in, I think, by the actual sculptures themselves. They're very pretty and well formed, and I actually wanted to touch them because they looked so smooth and well put together.
They evoked sort of a desire to touch them. There's a sort of a velvety finish.
They didn't look like they would feel like what they were actually made of almost, so it was like quite disarming then when you got round to the other side and seen that they weren't complete or they weren't whole.
That kind of playfulness appeals to me. What you set that against, of course, is the deep, deep blackness in these pieces, and the black is just the blackest black you've ever seen.
They're in this matte black. The surface quality of the work really traps the light, and there's this deadness about them. I really got the feeling when I first walked in, it reminded me of the figures from Pompeii. Figures frozen, I guess, in a moment of time, caught in death.
They also reminded me quite strongly of like a traditional like war memorial.
It really reminds me of the top of a tomb where you would have found these figures, especially in Renaissance times, of, you know, the popes.
You don't hear any sound around these people. They're very still, they're very, very silent, and they kind of invoke a silence. You feel when you look at these sculptures that you can't intrude into their space, into their sound, into this. So the silence is kind of right here.
The idea that they're all frozen in time, and the idea also that these people are all generally peaceful, caught in a context of extreme violence all around them.
I didn't know the context of all of them. They weren't familiar to me, all of them. So you could feel there was a context and that it was missing, and that felt like that the halfness of them really, you felt, okay, what's the rest of the story? It raises the question for you, what is the context?
The combination of the video work and the sculptures works really well. The idea replicated of these hollow spaces, these fragments, these cutouts.
It's like shards of humanity. Like in the way that everything was portrayed, it was kind of like if you saw like smashed mirror on the ground.
It's fabulous to see those fragmented pieces of imagery in that vast white space as though they're just kind of floating there. And in a sense, that's what Alcatraz did. It floated in the middle of that bay.
I am an American, but I had never heard of the Alcatraz story before. But it also kind of made me think of places that have seen oppression, I guess. Because there was one part of it, it looked like an army barracks.
Also brought to mind images that I've seen of Ellis Island, which is on 3,000 miles away, and it's the other story that comes into conflict with that one. But those same industrial spaces and the decay and the abandonment of them, and the way that they're sort of haunted by the stories of the people who were in them.
The juxtaposition of those two things, this kind of fragmented, lonely, dystopian kind of space set against what the Indians, the Native American Indians, wanted for that space and felt for that space is very, very striking.
I was struck by "This land is my land" written on one of the walls of Alcatraz. You know, the Woody Guthrie song, "This land is your land, this land is my land," and that the way that has such positive connotations about unity, but from a privileged perspective in some ways of the colonial people. I also felt like some of the pieces of the shapes that were cut out reminded me of standing stones or, you know, monuments. It felt to me a bit like Calder mobiles or Moreau shapes of the absences.
When it moves, sometimes it creates a kind of archway that you want to step into. You feel as though you can walk through the video, and I think that's a very powerful set of imagery. I think what surprised me about the show was that the three spaces are similar yet so different in the way in which they're executed technically. In each of them, it's about what isn't there as much as it's about what is there.
I was focusing anyway about the parts that were missing from the image and why they had been taken out, or what was it that was supposed to be there.
They're almost like jigsaw pieces. So the three parts of the place fit together like a jigsaw. Wherever you look, there are the spaces where something has been, and you want to know what was going on in those spaces. Why are they now empty?
Time has been stopped, and I guess that's always the purpose of art, to slow down time and to freeze time, but that's very apparent, and they really gives you pause for thought of, you know, who these people were at the time, the situations that they were in. And yeah, I find it very powerful work.